Hello, Magic friends, and welcome to the new Modern. Faithless looting's gone. Stoneforge Mystic, you're in. Hogaak, oh yeah, you're gone. We're not going to talk much about that because everyone saw that coming since the emergency update failed to remove Hogaak from the environment. So Faithless looting goes. If you guys have been following me for a while, back even on channel Nikachu, I believe I had been calling for Faithless looting to leave the format. I could just feel my life force sapped from me just playing against all these lootings decks. And before you say, oh, you just hate losing the lootings, I had a pretty good record overall against lootings decks. It's more just to the fact that it's just always the same. They're always so consistent, doing the same stuff. The starting hands, they don't have to mulligan as much. Like, look at the deck list. 18 lands, nothing else to help with your mana, and you're still surviving. Like, humans has 18, 19 lands, but they're playing 4 Aether Vials and 4 Noble Hierarchs. And their mana cost is 1 and 2. Like, Faithless lootings decks were unnatural. They needed to go for a long time. And now that they're gone, the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic, I mean, that surprises me. And as we're going to discuss here, it's had a huge impact, especially in the wake of all these Faithless looting decks being pulled out of the format. So, I mean, everybody just, it looks like, just moved over to jamming 4 Faithless looting, 4 Stoneforge Mystics into whatever deck they were playing. As you can see here, okay, like looking at the August 30th post bans with Stoneforge Mystic. You see green-white devoted blade, meaning devoted druid combo with Stoneforge Mystic, Batterskull, maybe 1 sword or whatever. No dredge with Stoneforge Mystic, so it's not over the top yet, I guess. But like Esper Wurza with Stoneforge Mystic, because I guess it goes and gets your Sword of the Meek combo piece and what else here? Like you're just seeing these SFM and quotes about over everything. Banned Stoneblade. A bunch of Taxes decks, as we're going to go into. Unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about any Taxes decks without Stoneforge Mystic, because all the ones that went 5-0 were playing 3 or 4 of them. So, I mean, if that tells you something right there, like, we had been doing, like, there were often 4 or 5 deck lists that were pulling 5-0s like, not often, but at times, and then sometimes there'd be none, and so, I mean, it's not like it's coming out of nowhere that Taxes is doing well. Especially with the Faithless looting decks, like they come in so fast and fill the graveyard so fast. Our answers weren't very good to them, so I mean it was somewhat being suppressed by the Hogaak menace, I think, near the end especially. So to see all these different lists making 5-0 shows that, like, maybe I've underestimated what Stoneforge Mystic might do, but at the same time I'm not jumping on board. I own Stoneforge Mystics, but you know what? That's not what I'm here to do. Search is for jerks. That's what I say. So I'm going to also talk about the way we can strengthen non-Stoneforge versions in order to fight the Stoneforge Mystic decks in general. So stick around for that at the end. So yeah, going over this deck list, like they're added. This is from 5.0 from the leagues, right? Modern constructed leagues. So this list is determined, like, it's each unique deck list, and a unique deck list is like gets published in this list, and there was 88 of them apparently. So that means that, like, if a dredge deck gets a 5-0 and then another dredge deck does a 5-0 with the same list, like, you're not going to see 2 lists on here ever. So 1,000 guys might have gotten 5-0 with the same dredge deck, but because all these Taxes decks have about like 15 or so different cards in them between the sideboard and main deck, you might see more individuals achieving 5-0s with these strategies. Even though that doesn't mean dredge isn't doing good at all. Like, it doesn't mean just one dredge deck did a 5-0 in that time, is all I'm saying. So these are skewed, but with the 88 unique deck lists, 27 of them were playing Stoneforge Mystics. So, I mean, like, that tells you that's a huge impact for a new card. I mean, so, I mean, I guess it has enabled diversity, but at the same time, I mean, how diverse is it going to be if you're just playing the same crap against the same crap every time? Stoneforge Mystic and Batterskulls. So, get ready if you're playing Stoneforge Mystics to be running into other people's Stoneforge Mystics and your Batterskulls to be crashing into each other. Prepare yourself. Have a good plan. Okay, so we'll get into it with some 5.0 deck lists from August 30th, the data dump. So here we have what looks like a mono-white Eldrazi Taxes deck. You're going to see 4 Aether Vials, 1 Batterskull, 1 sword, or maybe a second sword in almost all these deck lists, I think. And the swords just depends, I guess, on what that person expected to be playing against. So 4 Path Exiles, because they're excellent removal spells. 3 Blade Splicers, 4 Displacers, 4 Flicker Wisps, 2 Revokers, 3 Restos, 4 Stoneforge Mystic, 3 Thalias, 4 Ravens at 27 creatures. So the Phyrexian Revokers look a little scary to me when you're going to be coming up against a lot of the same Stoneforge Batterskull decks. I mean, maybe if your sword is off, you can maybe make sure you're going to be able to use that. But a lot of things it looks like in this format you're going to have to revoke are going to be things that you're playing in your own deck right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's going to even out and these decks won't be doing so good soon. But as it stands and the way things are looking, like you're going to be naming. If you don't have a Stoneforge Mystic in your hand, you might be naming that guy Stoneforge Mystic, and hope you just don't draw yours. No Arbiters in the main deck. This person has put 4 in the book. This is Cheesin, by the way. Congratulations, Cheesin. 4 Arbiters in the sideboard. So in the other thing when I'm looking at these lists, a lot of these people are going to have taken out the Arbiters for Stoneforge's 1-for-1 essentially. And now if you look, like, this is not much of a tax deck at all anymore. 3 Thalias. Like, what else really is even disruption? Like 2 Revokers. So I mean, if you're coming up against combo decks, you're coming up against like Valakut, Tron, like these decks are going to become a tough matchup. Like, and then the flip side of that is I don't know how much the Stoneforge package has actually increased our gen matchup. Like, you know, when I was watching people play against the gen, they're getting pretty soundly stomped by it still. So if you're not even going to be out grinding the grindiest decks with it, I kind of wonder about it. Like, I like Wall of Omens in this spot. Well, I play the Arbiters, and I like Wall of Omens to try to get card advantage with things like the Displacer and Restos and stuff. And it's just like, it's not a Batterskull, but Batterskull's hard to cast. And if they're able to deal with, you know, but I mean, a lot of these decks did 5-0, so I might be just resilient to change. And also, look, no Giver of Ruins. And Giver of Ruins had become a real staple prior to... I guess because you can't give her your things for colorless, otherwise your Batterskull is going to fall off. I don't know. It's just very, it's very telling that things have changed. I don't like this Thraben Inspector at all in Modern. I think he's just too slow. Those clues cost you too much. And then look at this: 4 Thrabens, 4 Aether Vials, Batterskulls, sort of like 3 Stony Silences in your sideboard. Like, you've got a lot of cards you're going to be diminishing when you sideboard. That's not to say this doesn't look like a powerful deck, and I can understand why they 5-0'd with it, but these types of things are hard for me to reconcile sometimes. So yeah, here's an extra sword in the sideboard, I guess, for when it matters. Other cards I've seen actually is like Mansiki oh god, what's it called? It's from one of the Kamigawa block sets. It's Mansiki Gurari or something. I can't remember what it's called now. It's Mansiki something, I'm pretty sure. And it's a 2-to-cast artifact that equipment that you equip for 1 and gives +1/+2 to the creature, and then you could tap the creature to destroy another equipment. And that's something like, if things are continuing, you might want to have that in your board, or maybe even one in your main deck. Like, it's cheap to equip. The +1/+2 is, something, and it moves easy. It moves cheap instead of like, the more cumbersome swords. So I don't know. That's something I'd also be considering. So more Revokers in the board. So I mean, maybe put this on your radar. In this new format, we'll have to see how powerful it is. Burrington Forge Tenders, good against the red, obviously, and Blessed Alliances. I haven't played this in a while. I've tried it before and didn't care for it, but it depends on what you expect to face, right? So, congratulations, Cheesin. 23 lands with the 4 Aether Vials, 4 Temples, 4 Ghost Quarters. It's pretty standard for these types of decks. 3 Silent Clearings with 10 Plains, 1 Shepherdunes, 1 Tech Edge. I don't like playing this many basics. You find lands that do abilities. Oh, and this more grindy, I'm back to 4 Windbrisk Heights, I think, when I'm making my version. Like, I'm not saying in this version I would play 4, but in general, I would play some. And in this version especially, probably 2. You got 21 lands that still come into play on tap to jam your Aether Vial out on the first turn if you need to. And I just find them to be, like, this is going to be a grindier format now. So you're going to have more time to save up the creatures to attack with. You've got Stoneforge Mystics to throw in after you've already gotten your Batterskull and they're no longer, thinking about killing it anymore. You just jam in with all those guys to get your free spell out from under your Windbrisk Heights. But, and with the 3 Blade Splicers, that should be easy to pull off. Another thing that I would note in this format coming up here, Eldrazi Displacer is a real house against Batterskulls. Like, it's so expensive to redo this, and if you've got a Displacer out, it's like, you're spending 3 mana, they're spending like 8 mana. Or 5 mana to equip something that you just blink. So as long as it doesn't have a terrible comes into play ability, like, you're just, they're just never going to get anywhere when you've got a Displacer out. So it's gonna, if you weren't playing them before, I'd get on board with Displacers regardless. Even if you're not playing Temples, I'd play some, because they're that good against Stoneforge shenanigans, like keeping it real, So that's number 1. Number 2 here, another mono white list with 4 Temples. No Ghost Quarters. 1 Field of Ruin, 4 Vistas. So here we've given up on Arbiter altogether in this version. 2 Shepherd Dunes, 3 Silent Clearings, 7 Snow-Covered Plains. This is getting closer to where I would think that you want to be. 1 Wastes, 3 Eldrazi Displacers, 1 Giver Runes, 4 Ranger Captains, 4 Stoneforge. So you're getting a lot of comes into play effects here. 4 Thalia, 4 Thought-Knot, 4 Thraben Inspector again. So hey, maybe I'm wrong about that guy. We're seeing a lot of a couple of lists that 5-0'd with 4 of them. 1 Walking Ballista and 1 Weathered Wayfarer, excuse me. 4 Path to Exiles, and interestingly 2 Ephemerate, so I guess to just reset your Ranger Captain, go get another 1-drop. 4 Aether Vials, 1 Battered Skull, 1 Sword of Fire and Ice. So, you know, this is going with the less tax route. Like this is just a white value deck really, like with 4 Thalias. Everything else is really not disrupting them at all. We're relying on Ranger Captain to pull in just a copy of Giver Rune. So far through 2 lists, we've seen only 1 Giver. But this one has 4 ways to search for it. But, you know, we're seeing a lot less of that. Again, the Mystic the Mystic Batterskull package. Here only 1 Stony Silence. So, I mean, this is starting to make sense. Like, you got 2 Fragmentizes. You know, like, this is more diversifying. You can't play that many Stony Silence with this many artifacts, I don't think. Like, Thrabens and, like, come on. That's a Ballista on top of it in this one. So this looks like another strong deck. This is not, again, not what I'm going to be going for. I'm going to try to make them pay still. As like Arbiters, Thalias, maybe even some of the Aven Mind Sensors, a couple. 1 or 2. Because it's looking like everyone and all of our mirror match opponents are even going to want to be searching their libraries. So, quite a bit. So interesting cards on the sideboard here. What, we got some Gideon Blackblades. I guess doesn't get wrathed away. You know, it's a bit of a toolboxy thing with giving indestructible to a creature, vigilance or lifelink every turn, and being able to exile permanent every after 3 turns without dying. After 2 turns with him dying, I don't know. I don't have much experience with that. If you guys have played that much and you know what sideboard matches you'd really want that in, let me know in the comments. 1 Selfless Spirit, 1 Surgical Extraction, 1 Winds of Abandon. So a 2nd sword in the sideboard again, so we're seeing that a lot. Yeah, like, I don't know, Stony Silence. 3 Rest in Pieces, so I mean, that feels pretty safe to go down to 3. Like, even if we're up against like a deck like Dredge, their deck's not going to be nearly as consistent and not nearly as explosive as it was. Like, you don't need turn 2 Rest in Peace where you're dead or maybe already dead. Like, you know, or... So, I don't know. I think that, you know, going down a little bit on those now is not too bad at all. An Archangel of Avacyn is a cool card. I don't know exactly where you'd want it, especially on a 22-land deck. I guess you can get your Aether Vial up, but I don't know. I don't like 5 to cast cards, really, with 22 lands myself. But it could be good, could be powerful, obviously. Impactful. So, congratulations to Cadella Grot for your 5-0. We got Black-White with Stoneforge Mystic and... 3 pieces of equipment. This one has 4 Givers though, 4 Flicker Wisp, 4 Displacers, 3 Thalias, 4 Thought-Knots, 3 Tide Hollows, 2 Wasteland Stranglers, 4 Path to Exiles. Lands being 4 Caves, 4 Concealed Courtyards, 4 Temples, 4 Ghost Quarters, 2 Plains, 3 Silent Clearings, and the Swamp. So, I mean, this looks like pretty much the old school Black-White, but we shaved down on maybe a Strangler. What did we get rid of? There's no, what's it called? 5/5 Reality Smashers in this. So we kind of just brought down our curve a little in this and jammed in the Stoneforge package, excuse me. In the sideboard, we have extra Wasteland Strangler, 4 Fatal Push, 2 Kumbals. So I mean, this guy's pretty good against combo and all that. You want this just against like little creature decks probably, or just creature decks in general. 4 Coral Firewalkers for the red decks. 2 Timely Reinforcements. So this is like, I guess your mana base is a little painful. Silent Clearings and Caves. Sometimes you do have to brutalize yourself quite a bit for your mana. So maybe you need like 6 pieces to beat the red decks. Usually with the mono white, I find that to be not that terrible of a matchup. And 2 Relic Warders. I like this card. You got 4 Displacers. With the Aether Vials, you can Flicker Wisp. So you play this Relic Warder. When he comes in play, he's 2 white to cast. When he comes in, you exile an artifact or enchantment. When he leaves play, you return it. But it's like the old school exile and return. Not the new one where if I play this and you bolt it, with the new creatures they make, you would never remove the permanent. It's reliant on the creature being out to finish the trigger. With this, you put the trigger on the stack, and if something were to remove Leonin Relic Warder from play with his first ability on the stack, you trigger that second ability to return the permanent, even though it hasn't gone yet. So if you get this, if you have the Aether Vial on 3, you play the Warder. Target is one artifact, say his Aether Vial or his Batterskull. We target the Batterskull in this situation. Then you activate Aether Vial, put out Flicker Wisp, and remove your Relic Warder from the game. You'll trigger returning the Batterskull even though it hasn't quite left yet, and then you'll remove the Batterskull and they can never get it back. And then when it comes into play, you'll get to remove another until he leaves, another artifact. So you can remove that Aether Vial and then when they kill it, they'll get their Aether Vial back. They'll never be able to touch that Batterskull again, unless they got Karn, the Great Creator, of course. So yeah, so this is looks like the evolution of Black-White. It looks just well filled in and containing Stoneforge Mystic package. You can see Arbiter is going to be doing good work if you stick with them now, though. Arbiter, even Mind Sensors, and it also because we saw in the other version there, people are not really maybe even playing as much Ghost Quarter, but they want to play some Field of Runes instead because they don't have Arbiters. Even Mind Sensor is excellent against those. They put the mana on the stack to kill your thing, and in response, you play an Aven Mind Sensor. You're looking through your whole deck. They're only looking at their top 4 cards to get that basic. So, I mean, they've probably whiffed. This is a 6-1 card deck, just so everyone is aware. Disclaimer. So, congratulations, the Robo, on 5-0. So, here, we'll go through this one a little quicker. This is a Black-White Eldrazi again, but without any disruption really at all, except for these high Tidal Scholars. So it's not really a Hate Bears deck or a DnT deck per se, but it looks like a strong deck, and it's similar enough that you might want to think about it if you enjoy Black-White. So here we're seeing the 4 Displacers, 2 Reality Smashers, 4 Stoneforge Mystics with 1 Batterskull, 1 Sword of Fire and Ice, 1 Sword of Light and Shadow, 4 Thought-Knot Seers, 4 Tidal Scholars, 3 Wasteland Stranglers. You also have 2 Inquisition of Kozileks and 2 Thoughtseizes. So, between your Tidal Scholars, Inquisitions, and whatnot, you are... Oops. Sorry about that. So between all that, you do have quite a bit of hand disruption to set up to get the Stormforger going, the Stoneforge Mystic going. 2 Fatal Pushes and 4 Path to Exiles to just, cure what ails you. 2 Relics in the main, which I'm surprised of, because I would have thought that, there's not that much... graveyard going on maybe, but graveyard is good. Get rid of it is good maybe. Sideboard 2 Disenchant, 4 Fulminator Mage. So against Tron, I guess that's extra insurance because we don't have things like Arbiter and Thalia to slow them down at all. Makes a lot of sense. 3 Lingering Souls, probably more for the hardcore grindy matches, things like Liliana the Veil and all that. 2 Plague Engineers for humans and all those guys. Only 1 Rest in Peace, so I guess with your 2 relics you can save on sideboard spots. 2 Phyrexian Revokers. Again, we're seeing these in other lists, so something to think about. Again, though, you'd be naming Stoneforge and Batterskull in a lot of situations, maybe, so it's kind of funny. Disenchants, if you followed me for a while, I'm a pretty big advocate of Revoke Existence over it. Same casting cost, sorcery speed as opposed to instant, but it exiles instead of destroy. And the guys who are playing in Staring Bridges and stuff often play things like Welding Jar. So if they do that and you're holding a Disenchant, you are just going to lose. If you're playing the Relic, it actually buys you Revoke Existence. It gives you more outs in that situation. Things like Wormcoil Engine against Tron, you'd sign in a Disenchant or Revoke Existence, but it's nice to deal with a Wormcoil Engine with a Revoke Existence. Trust me. So food for thought, but instant speed has its advantages too. So who's to say? Here we are seeing the Chalice version. Somebody put up a 5.0, 603 LEB. And there's no... Where are they? Oh, no, Batterskull, of course. Sorry. So they've added Stoneforge Mystics and Batterskull to this deck. So if you watched before, I got up to 3-0 in a league, and I'll tell you, in Faithless Looting Modern, I was so not impressed with it. I gave up at 3-0. I didn't even come back and bother finishing it. I lost out. I would have lost my 2 matches. I would have got $5 back guaranteed, and I just didn't even bother finish because I was just so uninspired. I just didn't even feel like playing Magic. I haven't put up a video in a couple weeks because it just wasn't tickling my fancy. And so I'm looking forward to getting back into it because it looks a little more fun, a little more like we're gonna play to the 5th and 6th turns and see what happens a bit. Maybe block when people attack a bit, and we'll see. It sounds crazy. So here we're seeing 4 Displacers, 3 Arbiters, 4 Smashers, 4 Spirit Guides, 3 Stoneforges, 4 Thalia, and 4 Thought-Knot. The Stoneforge has 1 Batterskull, 1 Sword of Fire and Ice. So 22 creatures only really in this deck. And my biggest problem with this deck is that, in fact, actually. 22 is so low. Like 1 in 3 of your cards is a creature. And creatures is how you win. So, I mean, if there's a thing I'm not a huge fan about this deck for, it's that. Well, I guess Batterskull counts as an extra creature. But, you know, I think you see what I'm saying. I do like the deck. I do think it's powerful. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was, because Chalice just isn't going to be as good now that Faithless Looting's, like all the decks that were playing Faithless Lootings, almost everything was 1 to cast in their deck. So Chalice was nuts. Now, I mean, there will be decks that it's good against, but there's going to be decks that it's just not good against now too. So we'll have to see how it plays out. So here in this deck, looks like Big Thalia didn't make the cut. Who else did they drop? 4 Smasher, 4 Thought-Knot, Little Thalia. So yeah, a little bit of disruption still. 3 Arbiters, 4 Thalias, 3 Winds of Abandonment. No Path to Exile still. They never played them, sorry. So here we're seeing the special lands, 3 Gemstones. That's pretty standard for these decks we've been watching. 4 Temples, 2 Caverns. Caverns had come in lately. 4 Sunbaked Canyons. That's pretty standard. 2 Blastzones. They don't all play this. I don't mind Mutavault in this spot too, with all the Planeswalkers running around. Yeah, you know, you got options. And yeah, here, no waste. Often this deck will play a waste. I've been kind of an advocate for not playing the waste. So in the sideboard here, we see 2 Dismembers. Oh, this deck usually plays 2 Dismembers in the main as well. So we've cut a few of those in order to make room for these equipments and not drop our creature count abysmally low. So sideboard 15 cards here, of course. 2 Dismembers, 3 Rest in Pieces, 3 Honor Guards. So, I mean, these are going to be good against Stoneforge Mystics. I don't know if this guy's going to be siding them out for them, 1 for 1, or you play through the anti-synergies and hope to get lucky. 2 Hazards. I don't know exactly what you want that for. I mean, I guess control, slower decks, just, you know, eat their lunch. 2 Stony Silences. You know, again, with a lot of artifacts in these decks. Although this one has way less. This makes way more sense in this deck because it only really shuts down these equipment cards. We're not looking at Thraben Inspectors, Aether Vials, like, you know. And 1 Worship. I don't mind a Wiser Worship. Often these decks will play 2. I feel like that is too much probably, but, you know, Worship's a nice card to top deck. It's a lousy card to have to plan around and be like, my plan is to go to 1 and survive on this Worship until I can win. But when you're on the ropes and you just top deck a Worship, that's real nice. Okay, so that's that. We got Miguel Caster and green-white taxes. It's not really taxes though. Like a lot of these decks, I mean, they've just got values. A lot of them are cutting arbiters, so they're very, very tax light. There are a lot of blade decks essentially, right? With Thalia blades, not taxes exactly. So here we're seeing 4 Stoneforges and 3 pieces of equipment with them. The 4 Aether Vials, of course. For these decks, it's I don't know. Aether Vial. We'll see. 2 Eternal Witnesses, excuse me. 4 Flicker Wisps. 3 Giver of Ruins, 4 Noble Hierarchs, 2 Renegade Ralliers, 4 Resto Angels, 4 Stoneforges, 4 Thalias, with 4 instant Path to Exiles to round it out. So with the Witnesses, it's pretty cool to be able to, you know, return your paths and stuff. And I think this deck has fetch lands in it. 3 Heaths. So, but oops, that's not what I meant to do. So yeah, 3 Heaths, 3 Field of Ruins in order, and 3 Ghost Quarters. So those Witnesses could do some work like that. Your paths, but I mean, other than that, though, it's going to be kind of hard to get these off. They look like they could be a little clunky. You'd probably want to have more fetch lands, I think, to be able to consistently be able to get the advantage of that. And Renegade Ralliers. So that's my opinion. But 3 Givers control the board and protect your stuff. Stoneforges to make it all come together. That's how you win eventually. Looks like a strong deck. Sorry, this is a lot of deck lists to go through. So sideboard, 2 Even Mind Sensors, 1 Dromoka's Command, 2 Phyrexian Revokers, 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Sword of Sinew, so a 4th sword in the 3rd sword in the sideboard here. 1 Purge, 3 Knight of Autumn, 1 Scavenging Ooze, 2 Surgicals, 1 Winds of Abandon. So like you're seeing Rest in Pieces are not like the absolute 4 of staple that they once were. About 3. It's looking like 3 graveyard removal spells is a lot more common. There's those Even Mind Sensors I was talking about to help stop the search for, I guess, because you got no Witnesses, no Leonin Arbiters. 2 again, Revokers, so I mean, these guys are kind of in a lot of these lists, let it be known. I like Purge, but I don't know if there's as much stuff to Purge these days. I have to see in action. I don't know what the format really looks like so far. All I'm seeing is tons of Stoneforge Mystics. Like what's underneath here. Here's a Batterskull Karn Great Creator deck that has Stoneforge Mystics. So, I mean, you know, they might have made a mistake on banning Stoneforge is maybe where we're going with this. So I guess we'll see if it all evens out over the next couple weeks. I mean, it's new. Everyone's excited about it. And new strategies have to come out to defeat it. But it's kind of looking a little crazy. Okay, finally, Reba's 8 playing a blue-white Taxes. So, got to start with your 4 Stoneforge Mystics, Batterskull, and a Sword of Feast and Famine. Excuse me. Interestingly, 3 Teferis. We've seen this before in some other lists. That blue-white Taxes. You know, I'm not the hugest fan of it, but I could, you know, it's usually the person just draws the card and then I roll it over, and then I don't know, it buys them a bit of time for what it did, I guess. It's just so useless when you're not doing anything. If like for a deck like I guess like what we play, I don't know. I'd like to see it in action some. That's for sure. So 1 Deputy Detention, 2 Flicker Wisps, 4 Givers, 4 Arbiters. So here we're seeing a decent. I think 3 of these decks had Arbiters and Stoneforges. So it's obvious, and they're pulling off 5-0s. So I mean, it's obviously not too like the Ender synergy is not so strong. Especially when you're using things like Aether Vial to put out the Stoneforge, you could pay for the Arbiter that turn on turn 3. So, you know, people might have exaggerated that a little. 4 Quellers, that's fun stuff. I like the Spell Queller. 4 Thalias, 1 Vendilion Clique, 4 Path to Exiles. So, you know, people ask about blue-white in those in our Facebook group quite a bit, and this looks like a fine blue-white list that I would give it a spin perhaps. But I'm going to really make them pay, guys. That's what I'm going to be doing. So stay tuned. Tune in for that. So, sideboard, 15 cards here. 3 Burringtons and 2 Core Firewalkers. So not confident in the red matchup, obviously. Wanting to shore it up. 2 extra swords. Probably for different scenarios. Like, this killing Planeswalkers and Artifacts that's pretty potent. A lot of decks either have one or the other, especially these days with all these Batterskulls running around. I might even be playing this one as my one main deck choice, to be honest. I don't know if Pro Red and Pro Black are the best anymore because Faithless Looting's like all the red black decks just left, it looks like. But and a third sword. So we got the whole what is it? Utility swords here. You can pick and choose what you want. 3 Rest in Pieces, 1 Damping Sphere. Looks good. You're not playing Eldrazi's in this deck, so that does make quite a bit of sense. It's pretty potent if you're not going to lose the advantage of your Eldrazi temples, right? 2 Gideons. We didn't see too many of these in the sideboards today, but that's pretty much a staple, 1 or 2 of in a lot of decks we've seen 5-0 over the last few months. So that's what the 5-0 tax decks look like in this new format. There's lots of different stuff going on. I'm so glad they got rid of Faithless Looting. It feels like it might as well play Modern again, you know, and go out and enjoy some games that last into the mid game, maybe even a late game, without being against like blue-white control or something. So you know, maybe more skills going to more skill playing the game rather than skill on just mulligan decisions and matchups is going to help rule Modern a little more, which I would, you know, I'd like that. That's I feel like I'll win more games in that situation, but it's more fun even when you lose in those, when somebody bests you. So that's kind of Magic I enjoy playing. So thank you, Wizards, for finally seeing reason and slowing down the format and making it hopefully more enjoyable. So tune into my league. That should be out tomorrow. And until then, don't forget to make them pay.